Welcome, everyone. It's another Friday, and it's another Friday Forum. So I'm glad to have you join us today. And I'm really excited because I have a very special guest, and we have a topic that generates a lot of discussion, and that is the topic of marketing and having that marketing mindset. So today I'm very pleased and excited to have in Susan Dabbar. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Cyndy. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
We're so glad to have you. You have quite a resume in terms of places you've been and what you've done in terms of marketing and branding. And as an educational consultant, your brand is AdmissionSmarts, right?
Yeah.
And you've worked with companies like Disney and Nestle and Nissan, and you're also an engineer, and so you have quite a wide range of experience of things that you've done. So we're so glad to have you here to talk to us today about all of these things. And as we have people joining us, those of you that have been here in my sessions before, we'd like to know where you're from. And Susan would like to know where you're from. So put in your name and where you're from, where you're hailing from today. And if you're in one of the places in Louisiana or Texas, I'm guessing that you're in a safe place because of all of the storms and things that have been going on. Our hearts and our prayers just go out to everybody that have been experiencing such devastation in these storms Storm Laura that has gone through. And I know, Susan, you used to live in the Houston area, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We were there for Hurricane Harvey, as a matter of fact. So I know, and we flooded. We had to be evacuated. So I know what that feels like.
Yeah, it could be a very scary and devastating experience. So we've got people from quite a few from Houston, California, Brazil, Massachusetts, New York. We're so glad to have you all here as everybody's joining us. So Susan, why is marketing such an important topic? What's the difference between marketing and branding?
That's a great question to jump off with, Cyndy. And it's one that I get asked so often. And the answer, it's actually a very simple answer, but it seems to stump a lot of people. Branding is who you are. That's it. It's who you are. What's the essence of your voice and what you want to convey as a business owner. Marketing is how you tell the world who you are. Marketing is basically the mechanism that you use to build that awareness. You could thinking of it in another way. Branding is strategic and marketing is tactical. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what does that mean? And a lot of people that's when their eyes go glazy when I talk about marketing in this kind of like touchy-feely. And a lot of consultants, and it doesn't matter whether you're an educational consultant or starting a business doing something else, think about branding as, okay, I need a company name, I need a logo, I need some company colors, and I'm off to the races. And you know what? That's not branding. Branding is more of a philosophical discussion about who you really are and how you want to represent to your clients and the public. More of philosophically. You sort of have to look both first inward. And I kind of do this audit where if I'm mentoring someone, I'll say, let's almost just like if you're brainstorming with a student, right? When you're sitting down to get all of those nuggets out and find out what their essence is, what their characteristics are that they want to show, in their essay, not tell, but show. Right. And so I start off, when I'm asking new consultants about their brand essence, what is your story? Why should your clients trust you? What kind of personality do you have? Are you more process leaning or knowledge leaning? And how are you different? When I first started this business, I came in, I started AdmissionSmarts about 12 years ago. And I was really intimidated and overwhelmed. And actually, you were one of the first people that I met, and you reached out such a generous arm to me because I had all of this business knowledge and marketing savvy, but I had a steep learning curve on the knowledge piece. So that wasn't going to be my shtick in the beginning, because I had a lot to learn. But what I did, but I was very process oriented because I brought that engineering training to the table.
Mhm.
And what I found was, at first I was, as I said, I was intimidated by, comparing myself, because we often do that with our competitors. And, I would meet some of our colleagues who had 3 degrees from Harvard, and they've spent, their entire careers in education. And I was coming off of a stint from, Nestle in Russia and, in Disney in California, and having my own businesses in between. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I ever going to compete with, with these real experts? And, I dug deep and, got into that kind of self-awareness mode, looking inward about what is my brand really going to consist of? What's that essence going to be? And for me, I leaned into STEM, and that has proven to be really successful for me. So that's just, and we can talk about that more later if we have time. And then, so you're looking inward, but you also have to look outwards a little bit when you're also developing your brand. And what does that mean? Who's your ideal customer? What pain points are you uniquely qualified to solve? And that's something I find that most new business owners don't do enough of. They're so focused on themselves, and, and getting up their website and having their list of services, that sometimes they get it a little bit wrong, and they're not looking outward enough. They're not really thinking like their audience is thinking. And that's a really important thing to remember as you're kind of assembling these like core attributes to your brand. So what do I mean by core attributes? So just going over that quickly, because that's part of the branding thing, and then I'll move on to marketing. It's, as I said, just like you do for a student, you want to distill your brand down to 5 or 6 characteristics. So I was thinking about this morning. So for AdmissionSmarts, I dug way back into some of my notes from, 8 years ago. And some of the notes that I wrote down for my brand essence: relevant, global, available, strategic, confident, and creative. Those are AdmissionSmarts brand attributes. And they're not going to be your brand attributes, right? And there's a whole like list of different kinds of attributes, and you can Google this, and also in some of the material I prepared that later on you'll have access to, there are lists of brand attributes. But that became kind of the foundation of my voice, my logo, the colors I use, how I serve students, my business model, and even my process. So hopefully you all see that strategic connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can't be all things to all people, right?
Right.
And so you have to identify where you're going to, what your essence is going to be and who you're going to be able to connect with. Because somebody coming from, and I've experienced this as well. I mean, I don't have a Harvard degree. The closest I went to was University of Colorado Boulder, and almost got kicked out before I even got into college. And so, my essence is going to be very different than somebody who had a very traditional, legacy type of thing. So their essence is going to be on that. I can't build on that. You can't build on, somebody else's from that area, but finding that essence and being able to accentuate. And just like our students, we don't realize sometimes what that essence is. So how do you figure out, how did you find out and figure out that these were your essence? Or how do we find out what our essence are? Because sometimes we don't know our own.
That's great. You can ask the people that know you well, lean on colleagues. What I did when I was first starting this business, I did a tremendous amount of benchmarking. And I'll talk about that in a little bit when I get to the marketing. But I think especially because our niche is, we're so generous in sharing, and you can really lean on other colleagues, just like, the service that you're providing, this amazing curriculum that you provide every week. And really kind of learn and ask these questions. And it goes back to your own personality, your own characteristics, your own experiences, and you sort of do a self-audit, if you will. Go back to your resume, ask your partner or your children or some of your, closest friends, like, what do I bring to the table? Like, why do you like hanging out with me? You know, what is it about my personality that you think would really be engaging with students? You know, it'll be different for everyone. And if not students, what, you know, how do, you know, how do I build trust? People always like characterize me as like very confident, kind of forward pressing. I'm not, those of you that know me and you know this, I'm very straight shooter. And that comes across in my brand. Everything from my logo to my website, it's just like straight in there. You know, we don't mess around. We're strategic, but we're efficient and we're available. And available is an interesting, like I use that in my essence, if you will, or an attribute, because that goes more to process and how I want to offer my services. And I've kind of had this mantra for the last 5 or 6 years that I'm open 365 days a year, 24/7. And that might, like send shivers up most, you know, consultants' spines, but you know, I'm not.
Where are those boundaries, right, Susan?
Right? There are no boundaries, right? To boldly go where no man goes. You know, I'm an empty nester and I'm a bit of a workaholic and I love what I do. So I'm that consultant that will pick up the phone on December 24th with a hysterical parent and a sobbing student because they missed all of their EA and ED, you know, choices, and they've got to start over. And nobody's around then. But I get those phone calls because I'm available. You know, again, that's maybe a little bit of a differentiator, but that's kind of wrapped in my core, you know, essence, if you will. So, no, oh, Michelle is like, no. Yeah, Michelle, you're right. No, I have since changed that a little bit. But you know, for a while that was really working for me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so anyway, let me just, I've got some, so, you know, so the brand it's all of those things. And you kind of get that philosophical, you know, thing nailed down first. And then you work backwards into some of your brand identity, if you will. And that would be your logo, the colors, your business name, the tone you're going to use in any of your media, your fonts, all of these things, you know, carry a message, if you will, and they all need to be consistent. And that's, you know, again, another time we could talk, you know, for hours just about those items and brand identity, but they all need to kind of work together. You know, just to briefly give you an idea, I've had 3 logos since I launched my business, and don't be afraid to change. That's another thing, you know, refresh. Every few years, I change my website. I change the look of it. I change my logo over, and I even sometimes shift my colors. And my most recent logo is a triangle, which sounds so simple. It's not a cap and gown. It's not the obvious. It's a triangle.
Not a puzzle piece, right?
Right. It's a triangle. And you're like, triangle, what does that have to do with educational consulting? Well, for me and my brand attributes and what I'm trying to portray, I found the triangle really worked well. And maybe it's subliminal and it totally goes over everybody's head, but it's in my head and it works, right? And so that's the important thing. Triangle, it's the strongest geometric shape. Triangle, it's got 3 equal legs: student, parent, consultant. Triangle, it's STEMmy because it's, you know, it means different things. Triangle, it's the delta sign, which means change. So the triangle, turns out, is a really cool logo. And I didn't invent that, you know, a lot of, you know, different companies use it, but you know, that really works. So hopefully you see that connection now, and I lean into that and I use that. So that's just one way. The colors that I chose for my website and that brand identity, hot orange, you know, a lot of consultants go with warm greens and warm blues, and that's awesome if that's your voice and that's you, but not me. I'm like, again, confident, like current, creative, right there, kind of in your face. That's what works for my brand. So that gives you a little idea of what you kind of need to think about for brand. Then we kind of move towards marketing. Are we ready to move towards marketing?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, good.
And it looks like Jessica has a question about reading and things like that. So I'm sure you'll have some things at the end, and you have some resources and things that you're going to share.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to be chock full of all these wonderful things that Susan has for you.
Yeah, so marketing is a different beast. Like I said, marketing is how you let the world know who you are, and it becomes very tactical. And there are different. There's kind of in-person marketing, and then there's like non-digital marketing, and there's digital marketing. And the comfort zone I'm finding for most IECs is certainly non-digital marketing. It's referrals. It's parent talks, boot camps, webinars, brown bag lunches, handing out flyers, doing direct mail. That's the comfort zone for a lot of us. Digital marketing is, well, I would tell you it's where it's at, because that's what I've had great success with. And there are benefits to both. But I really lean into digital marketing, as you know. And what do I mean by digital marketing? Website, blog, and then all the social media. Everything from, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then some of them you might not think about, which would be Reddit and Pinterest and LinkedIn. They often get forgotten when we kind of talk about social media, especially for beginners. And sometimes all three of those could be actually, more advantageous than even Twitter or Facebook right now. And there are various reasons for that. The other thing that I want to really stress, and again, this will kind of but digital marketing is an ecosystem, and you can't really do one without the support system around it. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but maybe in another time, on another beautiful day, we can go more into that.
Yeah, that could be a whole topic.
Yeah,
right?
All of these you could pick off one by one. And and I can talk, I'm happy to talk forever about these subjects, but social media gets like a really bad rap, especially with IECs. And I've done, many of these workshops, and I have people asking me all the time, like, but how do you even find time? And I see there's a question in here about, do you hire out your social media marketing? There are lots of different ways to do social media marketing. And it really depends on what, where you are in your business goals, in your business, as in terms of how long you've been in business and what you've already got set up. I tell new consultants, you got to have a website. And if you don't have a website while you're making your website, use LinkedIn as a website, because you can really be very creative with LinkedIn and really utilize it and start building a network on LinkedIn. But in today's day and age, I can't even really imagine doing business without a website. And then after your website, so that's the basically base camp for your ecosystem. That's the
website. Does it have to be perfect? Because I have this conversation a lot of times with people, and sometimes they feel like, well, I've got to build all these things for my website, and it takes them a year to build a website. So
no, that's a great question. Oh my gosh, don't let perfection get in the way of actually, executing. And it does for so many people. Your website could be one page, really one page. And then you can add every month another page. The other thing that I would, while we're talking about websites, is it really helps if you have just a little bit of technical skill. And I don't mean that you need to design your whole website from scratch yourself, but if you learn and force yourself to spend like 1 week learning a little bit about the nuances of, if you're using a WordPress site or a Wix site or Square or whatever platform, learn how to use it so you can go in and you can change things yourself. And don't go with something that's too complicated where you have to have a webmaster who has to make every single change for you. I've learned that over the years, and now I build my own websites, and I can change things. I added a landing page just for you guys last night, and it took about 20 minutes. And plopped in some resources, and I did it myself. So I think that's really important. And just a little bit of kind of empowering yourself to be in charge is really important in the marketing piece. So, so kind of back to the ecosystem. So you've got your website, and then whether or not you want to write blogs, I'm very pro blog. It's a great, you've got to drive, so again, digital footprint, like you got to get people there. And you've got to create an email list, like all at the same time. And that's called a sales funnel, by the way. And we'll talk about that again at another time. But you've got to kind of collect prospects in their funnel. At the top of the funnel, as they're spinning around up here, they're like, oh, what's this? I might be interested in this. Ooh, I'm going to grab this. So now they're down the funnel a little bit lower, and they're grabbing something off my website. Ooh, I really like this. I'm going to go back for more and see what else she has to offer. And now they're down in the bottom of the funnel, ready to convert as a client. That's a super simplistic kind of explanation of a sales funnel. But I find that when you talk to, especially IECs about sales funnel, the eyes get glazed over and they don't get it. But it's really a very simple concept. And so you got to offer them something. And blogs are a great thing. Blogs, ebooks, newsletter, what you're doing, anything like that. That's called content marketing or inbound marketing. If you hear those terms, don't be confused by that. It just means that you're giving away your expertise to collect the top of the funnel, to get people interested, to get people excited. And you know what the great thing about that kind of marketing is? Even if they don't convert, and this goes to ROI, which is, I know, a question we might entertain later, return on investment, you'll be building brand ambassadors. So even if they don't hire you or can't afford your services, you've got a friend for life. So they might have a friend who then refers, who they'll refer you to and say, look, I'm not going to use her services. My kid's already into college, but check out AdmissionSmarts, and see what they're doing, because man, she really sounds like she knows her stuff. And so you're building that brand awareness, but you're also building brand ambassadors without even knowing it. So that goes into the win and to the ROI box. That's why I look at that.
So I'm going to mention too to people in terms of website. I totally agree with you, because like I put up my brand new website. It was one page. I had like a paragraph and a picture. That's literally all I had. And so over the last year, I've been building and adding, and I add a lot of stuff to it on my own. But sometimes you do need help. So I do want to mention that there is a company, and this is who I use for mine, is Education Consultant Platform, ECP, short story marketing, and they do a great job. So people, if you have questions or things, I'll put their contact in our show notes and stuff too, because I agree with you. Knowing and understanding, knowing even a little bit of HTML, because when you're trying to put things in there and they're not looking the way you want it to look, sometimes that can slow you down. But they have, it's amazing how many tools and how intuitive these platforms have become. So you can literally put together a website in a day. And
you absolutely can. And especially with these, they're called what you see is what you get. Kind of, that's the technology term where you don't need any coding, but like Wix, where it's like color forms. Like, I don't know, I'm dating myself now, but when I was, back in the way day, you just like take a cute little little like color form over here and you plop it down and boom, that's it. There's your blog. It's done. And it's super easy. So, highly recommend you get that up. The other thing is that the trend for websites now is shorter form, quick copy, quick and snappy copy, good headlines, couple of sentences, and then move on. My first website, it was like pages of, and then it was below the fold, above the fold. That's all history. Now it's just like people, as you know, we all have like short attention spans, and it's just like quick hits. And again, get them in, get them to your content. That's what you want, and get them to stay and read your content.
Well, and that's because the majority of people are looking at your website on their phone. They're not looking at it on their computer.
Yeah, that's right.
So having multiple pages, having everything on one page where they can just scroll down is, it has to be mobile responsive.
Yeah, for sure. And that's such another important factor is the last website that I designed it what we call mobile first, where the best view is on mobile, and then you kind of work backwards from there. The other thing is that, going back to the ecosystem. So now we've got our website, one pager, great. Check plus, A plus. And all right, so what about the rest of it? And maybe you've got a blog, maybe you haven't. Then you want to dip your toe maybe into, having a little bit, expanding the ecosystem a little bit into whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. You've already got your LinkedIn profile. That's a given. Most of you know how to do that. And, something that I would say is, and this goes back to all of your social media and to your website, get a good headshot. You can't go anywhere without a good, if you're the face of your company, you got to have a good picture of yourself, and it should be current. As much as I love to put a picture of me up from 20 years ago, like that's not fooling anyone, right? So, put up a good headshot, pay somebody to do it.
All right, Susan.
What?
COVID and all.
Yeah, just do it. And make sure that your content, I said snappy copy, that you're current and relevant. And even if your brand essence or attributes aren't as kind of in your face as mine are, you still need to be current and relevant, because you know what? That's what we're selling. We're selling expertise that has to be current and relevant. And if your website and your branding looks musty or dusty, that's not going to do you any favors. So again, be relevant and be current. The other thing I wanted to, talking about, do you want me to talk a little bit more about any social media or where I've had success? And where
I think, well, especially now, because we're right in the middle of COVID, so we can't go out and do those meet and greets and network and, the personal thing that we're so used to. So many of us are just kind of feeling like at odds and at lost ends, because well, now what do I do? So yes, what if you can't go out and talk to people in person, then what do you do? That leads itself.
That's right. You create a digital footprint, and this is a great time to do it. And unfortunately, we're probably all going to be stuck, still at home for a few more months, or maybe till the end of the year. So this is, again, a great time to really do a brand refresh if you already have a brand, or to kind of start over from scratch, or to start from scratch. The thing that you need to remember is that with social media, is you don't need followers, you need a sales funnel. And I know, again, back to the sales funnel. So I'm glad I mentioned it. Yep. And I don't mean to sound tacky, because a lot of IECs, they kind of shy away from me when I start getting we're salespeople. We are entrepreneurs. Embrace that. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to be successful, right? Yep. And so you're an entrepreneur. That means you have something to sell. We happen to be selling services, very, very crucial services. So we need that sales funnel, and that's far more important than having 100,000 followers. Yep. Also, the other little rich bit that I have for you is that we're selling insight. When you think about social media, sell insight and not necessarily solutions. It's okay to have solutions in some of your content, how do you construct a resume for the UT expanded resume? That's selling solutions, but your overall messaging and voice should really be selling insight. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's go back to the idea of what, kind of the tone for social media and your kind of marketing that, that dovetails in with your brand essence. So think about what we're really delivering, right? We're really delivering a dream. We're delivering a dream, right, for your student to get to college, to go on, get to the career that that their goal is set on, to be happy, to be successful, and to go forward in life. I mean, that's a tall order when you think about it, right? And we're instrumental in helping to deliver towards that dream. When I worked at Disney, our delivery was happiness, right? Disney's happiest place on earth. Happiness. So get your head around that one. Like, how do you, and all of Disney's marketing, you know, kind of, you draw a big circle around happiness, and then you kind of plug in the different ways that they deliver happiness. So we need to think about it in the same way. I often use the similarity to Ralph Lauren, because Ralph Lauren, and it's a direct quote, it's not fabric, it's about dreams. Yeah. And he creates entire clothing, you know, around, you know, the safari adventure, the Western adventure, the climbing the Alps, entire collections. He starts with the dream. And that's what I find is the most successful strategy for social media. If you keep your social media very one-dimensional, meaning cap, gown, successful student, you know, college list, building, it's going to be flat, and you're not going to be noticed. You have to go beyond and think bigger. Think about the dream. Think about everything that includes. That could be inspirational quotes. It could even be dorm decor. Don't die. But
oh, I know. I think it's fabulous that you do that.
Let me tell you, my Pinterest account, which I'll talk to you in a minute because it's my single lead highest lead generator. My dorm decor board is the most popular by far. That might just make you cringe, and that's okay. I'll take that. That's fair. But it works for me, and it drives so much traffic because you know what? When I meet with mostly my girls who care about dorm decor, you know, who care about what they're thinking about is, oh, I can't wait to get to school and decorate my dorm room. Help me get to that school, right? But that's their end game, is decorating that dorm room. I know it sounds silly, but it really works. So you have to think of that bigger picture, and that can really help open a lot of alleys for you in terms of marketing and really kind of broaden, you know, like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do this. There are no rules. How can dorm decor get leads? Stephanie, that's a great question. So Stephanie, I would tell you to go on to AdmissionSmarts Pinterest and check out all of the peripheral dream-making topics that I have bulletin boards pinned on. So let's just talk about quickly Facebook versus Twitter versus Pinterest versus Instagram.
Yeah, because that's one of the big questions. Like, there's so many, you know, how do you pick?
How do you choose?
So, it's like, how do you prioritize? And
first of all, social media isn't for everyone. You have to kind of be committed. Every single channel may have a different audience. So the audience for my Twitter is very different than my Facebook audience, is very different than my Instagram audience. And what do I mean by that? And yeah, that makes it more complicated. I get that, but that's the way it is. Twitter, I'm mostly speaking to colleagues, higher ed, journalists, some parents, but zero leads come from Twitter, and very little traffic comes back to my website. Remember the sales funnel? Very little comes back to make it down my funnel from Twitter. Actually, almost zero. But I'm building my reputation as a thought leader. I'm building my reputation with my colleagues, who then their practice is over full, if you know, flowing over, and it's November, and A, they know I take late seniors, and B, they know I'm a STEM expert. So you know what? Because I've established myself and I have a brand, you know, a national brand recognition now because I'm on Twitter, I get those referrals. Yep. So it's an indirect kind of return on investment. Instagram, I have a, you know, a like love-hate relationship with Instagram. Honestly, I have managed Instagram myself. I've hired somebody to kind of refresh my Instagram. I've changed it over the years. I've had really good success with getting followers and very little success getting true engagement and traffic driving back to my website. So while I feel like in order to be relevant, and because I teach social media, I've got to be in that game for in terms of driving traffic to AdmissionSmarts, doesn't do it for me. And most of the reason is that it's mostly young people on Instagram, although that's changing. And they'll like one of my motivational, inspirational quotes or something like that, or a fuzzy sweater or a dorm room picture, but they're not going to go onto my site for the most part. Very low traffic, like 3% of my website traffic comes from Instagram. Facebook is a marvelous tool, and you have to think of Facebook now as a software platform, almost like a separate website that somebody's built for you and you can go and use for free. And that, you have to think of it that way. And Facebook can be very powerful, especially if you integrate Facebook groups into your Facebook, with your Facebook page. And there are a lot of consultants that are doing that now very successfully. And I've run various groups over the last few years that have been also very, very successful. So here's the top level, like Facebook skinny. Don't use your personal Facebook profile as your business page. Don't cross over. Actually, if you start posting business stuff, Facebook may even block you. You have to start your own Facebook business page, and a page is different than a group. So if you're dipping into Facebook, make sure you do a little studying and a little Googling, or talk to somebody who knows the difference between them. But once you're up and running on a Facebook page, and or you've got a Facebook group going, you can use their lives, you can use their, all of those services that are already built in and quite seamless. You can build quite a following. I know several consultants that are running their entire business in a Facebook group. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, that just like, cool, right? And I did on a special project that I won't go into right now, but over a year ago, I ran a special project where we ran an entire multi-consultant practice in a Facebook group, a closed subscription-based Facebook group. So it's fascinating what's really available out there if you get, kind of go down this digital path. The kind of copy that I show on my Facebook page, and honestly, it's not one that I give a tremendous amount of attention to, is, if there's something like newsworthy that comes out, I'll make a post. If I've launched a new blog that I think is really quality content, I'll post it on my Facebook page. Sometimes I'll do like a little op-ed on something that's happening, like when COVID first started. Usually I express an opinion. I write maybe a few sentences, because the people that my audience on my Facebook page, they want that. They want that authentic voice. It's not just quick hashtags. It's more, oh, what's Susan got to say today about this? Right. Like, let's tune in. And that's my place to do that. My Facebook page for AdmissionSmarts started out with mostly moms that were clients, and some of the moms that my own children years ago went to high school with. And then it's grown organically from there. I've had some really nice growth, but that's who it started with. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I always own Facebook, my Facebook page, and it was my very authentic voice. Pinterest. All right, so a few years ago, probably about 6 years ago, I started an AdmissionSmarts Pinterest account, and I was very wary, like, this is gonna be a waste of time, not really sure about this, but I'm gonna try it. And I started building boards, and because I didn't know where I was going with it, I started building, tailgating, football, recipes, and then college strategies, college essays, Ivy League applications, whatever random, idea that I found an article and I wanted to pin. And then I started getting a little traction, and I got a little more organized over the years. And a few of us that are, colleagues, and Ethan Sawyer is a great colleague of mine and a good friend. And we kind of had this like little, internal competition, like, let's see. And he chose Twitter and I chose Pinterest. And I said, I'm going to spend the next year focused on Pinterest, and you spend the next year focused on Twitter. And let's see where we are at the end of the year. And not that I'm competitive or anything, but like,
oh no, not at all.
I won. Hands down, I won. Because Twitter is, waned, and, and its engagement is tough, and it doesn't really reach our market. But you know what? The demographics on Pinterest are awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Talk about avatar from who you want to reach, either from the student side or the parent side.
Here's the other thing about Pinterest, and this is something that most people don't talk about. It's the life cycle of the content. So the life expectancy of a Twitter post is like 4 seconds. It's dead after that, gone forever. The life expectancy of Instagram is about 30 seconds. The life expectancy of a Facebook post is about a minute, a hot minute. Pinterest, 3 months.
Wow.
I have Pinterest posts of my own original content that are still on my top clicks from 4 years ago. It doesn't work that way on any other social media outlet. That's why Pinterest could be your best friend. But it takes some work getting there. And I'm not saying that would happen overnight, because it has been a slow 25 pins a day. I have college interns that do it, that have done it for me in the summers. I do it late in bed at night, a pin. I try to pin at least 3 original AdmissionSmarts, original content every week, every 2 weeks. And the other great thing about Pinterest is recycle. That's good. That's pretty much the same about all social media. I write one good blog post and you push that out. You can so with Pinterest, I'll have one good blog post and I'll do 5 different covers for it, which means basically a pretty picture that goes over that, because that's how Pinterest works. Mm-hmm. And then I'll drop it every week. I'll drop the same blog post with a different cover. And it's 5 different blog posts, and it's amazing. So Pinterest. So, before I leave Pinterest, I'll just tell you, these are my stats on Pinterest. I get over almost 3 million impressions a month. 3 million impressions a month. So you might laugh at the dorm room decor or the tailgate recipes, but I've got 3 million college age, high school age and moms looking at my content. Of that 3 million, I get about 150,000 direct engagements with my content every month. Wow. Pinterest drives 75% of my website traffic. That's a big number. So for me, the ROI is on Pinterest. And funnily enough, it's what I spend the least effort on. So if we're talking return on investment, it's Pinterest for me. It may not work for you, but have a look and, check it out for yourself. So that's where I am on that. Where do we want to go from here, Cyndy? What have I missed that I haven't covered yet that you wanted to cover?
Well, so let's go back a little bit to integration and groups, because that is something that people are still kind of reeling about. What do you mean by that exactly when you're integrating groups, especially Facebook groups? How are people doing that? How can that be effective for a consultant to do Facebook groups? I know I have some. I post some things. I have people on a list, but nothing ever happens. So, I don't know how to get people moving and engaged. And
yeah. So honestly, Cyndy, this platform that you're building right now, this would be the most ideal platform to just move right onto Facebook. Okay. And it would take you as an example. So as an example, I was charged to do this 2 years ago. There's a mommy group out there called Grown and Flown. Maybe some of you are members or you're familiar with them because they pump out a lot of content. And they approached me about running a Facebook subscription group called Grown and Flown College Admissions and Affordability. And it was a closed group. So we advertise, they advertise on their platform because they have a big following on their Facebook page. Oh, we're starting this Facebook group. And it costs, I think it was, I don't remember, $29 a month. And there are different ways that you can, Facebook had at that moment, they had a mechanism where Facebook actually handled the payment, but a lot of consultants that are doing this, and Sarah Harbison is another one that does this very successfully. She's an IEC, where you go offline and you pay directly into the consultant, and then they let you in the group. So there are different ways that you can organize that. And you have kind of a low threshold, and then they're in the group, and you're in there. I was giving Facebook Lives every Friday, talking about the college admissions step by step. It's a nice way, because our college admissions process is, it's time sensitive, it's synchronous with the calendar. So it allows you to kind of walk, just like you do with private clients, walk a family through step by step through August and September and October and hit those milestones. And meanwhile, they're on a subscription. Now, is that as lucrative as a package or an hourly, kind of like a traditional model? Well, it becomes more of a volume business, right? So if you've got 1,000 members, which we had, in our Facebook subscription group, at, $29 or $39 a month, starts to add up. And you're only, saying your message once, and you've got this beautiful audience, just like we do here with 101 participants right now. So, it's a different way of thinking about your model. Again, I can't emphasize enough that Facebook they've got some really good tools now. You can store PDFs. They have something called units. And again, you're probably not familiar with this because you've never looked for it. But units is almost like a curriculum, and you can build a curriculum. Like I had a unit on college essays. I had a unit on, test prep. I had a unit on, just write down the list. And so members at any time that they want, they can go in and grab the resources. They can go and watch any video. It's all stored right there. It's one-stop shopping. So that's why Facebook can be a really cool, cool tool. And if there's a lot of interest in there, I'm happy we can, talk about this another day and really go into detail about it. But does that answer the question?
It does. Yeah, it does. So you mentioned how on Facebook, you want to use your business page and you want to create your own page, not use your personal account. For Pinterest, is it the same thing? You set up.
Yes.
Pinterest connects back to, like, it'll connect them back to your website, right?
It does. And not only that, there's this thing verified now. A lot of the different social media, like you're a verified company or brand. And with Pinterest, it's really important to set up a business account also, because they verify you, which means it links back to your website. But most importantly, you get your analytics. And Pinterest's analytics are really phenomenal. It shows right on your dashboard, if you're the owner, and it's like Pinterest. So one click, I'm in there and I can see immediately what my traffic looks like, how much traffic's going to my website, how well the fuzzy sweater is doing this week, and I keep using that example over and over, because about 3 years ago, we posted this fuzzy sweater and it wasn't extraordinary, but it went viral. I'm not even kidding you. It was the most bizarre thing, and it drove so much traffic to my site. It was crazy, really crazy. So we use that internally in my company, like the fuzzy sweater example. Anyway, so yes, everything that you can to make business proper. You're a business. Right. Show yourself as a business. Keep your personal stuff separate.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about people are asking about YouTube? I don't know. I've been building, all our interviews, everything all go onto YouTube. So do you use YouTube? And of course, the big controversial, social media site right now is TikTok.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with that? But so what about some of those visual?
Well, I'm glad somebody asked about YouTube. So first of all, video is king right now. Mm-hmm. And I would say that we've all had plenty of practice now being in front of a camera, right? Look at us. And honestly, even with my outgoing personality, I've been camera shy. I was a late comer to video. I really only about 3 years ago kind of said, Susan, you got to bite the big one. You got to get out of this like scary place you're in. And you just got to force yourself to get some video done. And I did, and I've used those videos over and over again. So yes, YouTube. I'm a late comer to YouTube. I think I have 3 or 4 videos up. I haven't used, YouTube, but man, if you could run a YouTube channel, you could do it again, run your whole business, monetize it. There are lots of phenomenal things that you could do with YouTube. If you like being on video, the thing with YouTube is, and this is true with Instagram stories and TikTok, the more authentic you are, the better it is, because that's what especially the younger set are looking for. So like this whole backdrop I've got, and Cyndy, you've got, you know, your professional office, like that might appeal to like a small demographic, but it's kind of like, you know, you go back to the makeup influencers, you know, they're in their bedroom, their bed's unmade behind them, they're looking all kind of crazy, and they're right up there, you know, putting on their eyeliner and saying, oh, I really like this, you know, and they're getting traction. Yep. So you've got to like play around with what works for you. That's not my shtick. So that's why I've been a little bit like, but it might be yours.
And that goes back to what you were saying in the beginning about brand. If that's, you know, you can't pull that off if that's not really who you are and the essence of who you are, you know, and you have to keep that in mind too as you build those brands and go into video and things like that. One other one I'll mention that I've had a lot of success on is SlideShare. Like you can put up content, you can put up PowerPoints, you can put up documents. I did one on University of California application. Within an hour, I had over 1,000 hits. It was just something I just put up there because I thought people might appreciate it. I was writing for my students. I had no idea. And, you know, it wasn't, and I just put it on SlideShare and it still gets a hit. I mean, it's been 2 years and it still gets hit. Now I need to redo it. But yeah, so having that longevity and recycling content marketing is the name of the game for us, wouldn't you say?
Content marketing is half science and half like, you know, art, magic. It took some time to kind of learn and trial and error to see what works. But somebody asked about the cute covers and the actual content that's behind the covers. It's all about that. Speaking the cute covers, I do them all myself, and I make them all. I use a little software program called Canva. And again, Canva is a lifesaver for me. Again, it's one of those things like color forms. You just like teach yourself on a Sunday afternoon if you like graphics and that kind of creative outlet. And it takes me like, you know, 4 minutes to do 4, you know, Instagram covers or blog post covers for Pinterest. They have all the parameters right in there for the sizing. You just put in your logo, you put in your corporate colors, you can pull all kinds of standard pictures, and it makes it very, very easy for you. And then you just download them and then you're good to go, and you kind of drop them in. That's how a lot of my Instagram, you know, images have been built over the years. If you take a look on any of my Instagram account. Somebody had a question about Facebook. I just wanted to jump in and
how do you get groups to join? I mean, how do you get people? And
how do you get members? Well, this is the ecosystem, right? The sales funnel. So somewhere along the way, you have to have an email. You have to collect emails. And how do you collect emails? Well, you got to give them something to get an email.
Right.
So start with your website or start with LinkedIn. Make those connections and get emails. Then you get a little bit. And the two best, you know, actually Constant Contact or MailChimp. Those are probably the two. Which one do you use one of them?
I've used both, but right now I use MailChimp. Yeah,
same. I've used both. And right now I use MailChimp. Set yourself up. Again, very easy little software that you have to have.
Yep.
Collect, you know, and that's one thing
Ethan and as you get started, and then pretty soon you move into the paid version.
Yeah. And that's another thing that Ethan Sawyer and we had like this little competition, and he has far surpassed me on email list. You know, his email list now is, you know, global, huge. And mine is, you know, it still trickles in. But get that email list. The other thing is on Facebook. So here's how this works back to Facebook group, Facebook page. You start with the Facebook page, because that's basically, think of the Facebook page as the home page of your website. That's the home page on Facebook for your business. So now you've got people there, and they like you. They're not even followers. They're called likes. Whenever you're going to blast some content, you put it on that Facebook and you set your note, and people will get those notifications. And then in the comments you say, leave your email here so I can make sure to add you to so you're the first ones to get my content, or you get my premium content. And people will leave or DM me with your email, depending on privacy issues and how you want to handle that. The other thing that you can do is you do a big fanfare. When you're ready to start a Facebook group on your Facebook page, again, you've got to have a few followers, because again, it's the cart before the horse before the cart. Content drives members, content. You put on your Facebook page, I'm starting a new Facebook group. I'm going to have a, Mom of STEM Kids Facebook page, and I'm going to talk to you moms every Friday about everything you need to know about summer camps for STEM kids. And blast it, send it out on your Constant Contact or your MailChimp to your email list, and you put it on your Facebook, and you put it anywhere else. You shout it from the rooftops, and you tell people, you give them the link of how to get into your page. And maybe you start it for free. I would recommend starting it for free to start with, get a little momentum, see if you like it, see if they like it. And then a little down the line, you say, you know what, I'm gonna start charging for this, and figure out how you're gonna do that, if you're gonna grandfather your original members in, or, going forward, if you're actually producing enough content that you think is worthy of monetizing. Again, those are all business questions that you have to, you have to answer. Somebody asked about newsletters. Newsletters are awesome. Again, we have some colleagues that do amazing newsletters. College Match Point is one of them. I can't stress enough, for those of you that are IECs in particular, for any business, but for IECs, benchmark some of the people some of the thought leaders in our world that are really doing things well digitally. And I put together and this is not an all-inclusive, but these are, some people that I have personal relationships that are all doing things, I think, really well. And if you opened up all 5 or 6 of these at one time across your screen, you would understand immediately brand attributes, how different it is, how they're doing their delivery, and what their digital footprint looks like. College Essay Guy, most of you probably know if you're an educational consultant. Admission Mom. So what has she done? She's created her own space on Reddit. And it's amazing what she's created. AdmissionSmarts, oh, that's me. College Match Point, that's Lisa and Bob Carlton out of Austin, Texas. They deliver one of the best newsletters, I think, out there. It is chock full of the most amazing free resources. You should all get, if those of you that are IECs, you should all get their newsletter. I subscribe to every IEC newsletter I possibly can. Again, I want to see what everybody else is putting out. I want to see what they're talking about. I learn reading their newsletters. College Wise, now they're a bigger group. They've expanded, but they put out really good resources. And then Ivy Wise is another one. She started as a one person, one off, but her social media and even her website it's quite well done. So theirs are just, and Cyndy, you could probably add to the list. But those are some of the ones that if you just want a quick study on a few websites and their associated ecosystems, those would get you started.
Yeah, and I put those in the chat. I think those are great ideas and great suggestions. So we are going to run out of time. So we're going to have to revisit this and bring you back for a part 2. But I want to go back to one of the other questions. And somebody's asked, do you use a suite to manage this? Do you like Hootsuite or, something where you can post it once? And I know even on your website, like on my website, it says, oh, you can post it to Twitter and Facebook and, you post your blog and then it posts it all these places. So what are your thoughts on that? So I've heard differing opinions, both pro and con.
I've tried it all. I've tried lots of different tools over the years. And yes, I've used Hootsuite probably rises to the top. That's the one I've used most consistently. I've just recently, I've switched to Later, which is you know, it makes Instagram. It's a very easy, user-friendly Instagram scheduler. Pinterest, I do by, even though Pinterest has, there are a couple of programs that will help you with that. They all kind of integrate now, but I do that I just drop them in at will. And my Facebook, I drop in at will. I kind of have my own schedule and I'm very trained at this point, and disciplined to do that. I have had people over the years who have handled my social media. I'm back doing it myself right now.
Yeah.
And that can be a wonderful thing, but it costs money. So, you know, that's when you really take the plunge on really understanding return on investment. So that has to be a very intentional decision, and happy to talk about that later too at another time.
Well, this has been phenomenal, Susan. Thank you so much. And we had well over 100 people join us today. So thanks to every single one of you. I know you're all joining us from all parts of the world, and that is just so exciting because this is, I mean, we are in a global society, right, Susan? And these are all things that'll help you, whether you're in Brazil, Colombia, Paris, you know, London, Houston, wherever you are. So yeah, we'll have to do a part 2. So
I would love to come back anytime. You know, I'm there.
That would be great. And we'll be, people should look for your offers. I'll be posting them on our website. As you said, you mentioned a landing page. If they want to get a hold of you, how do they reach you, Susan?
They can just send me an email, susan@admissionsmarts.com, and I'm happy to, you know, reach out to them. I do some private coaching on branding and marketing, and I'm happy to share what I know, really and genuinely.
Yeah, and you'll have to talk about your bulldog. You know, he's part of your brand, he's part of your image, and I just think he is just phenomenal. So we're not meeting next week, everyone, but we will be meeting September 11th, and we're going to have 2 also very well-known thought leaders in our industry. Jenny Kent and Jeff Levy are going to join us, and they're going to talk to us about their data that they collect and what that looks like and how they do it and why it's important, especially now when we're all mostly homebound and working with our students, and this year is just blown up, right? So join us in 2 weeks, and we'll have Jeff and Jenny on, and then I also have Susan from the WOW Writing Workshop, and she's going to talk about when is enough. Like, we all have these students who are writing these essays, and at some point you just have to say it's not perfect, but it's good enough. So we're going to talk about that in a few weeks too. So
what a lineup. Wow. Kudos to you, Cyndy. Really.
Well, I have Ed Fisk coming in October, and so I'm going to be interviewing him from the Fisk Guide, and so we're very excited and looking forward to it. I'd love to interview the Mary and the Grown and Flown.
Yeah, Mary Dell and Lisa. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to talk to them. So you have a great afternoon. Everybody, you have a great afternoon. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today and spending time with us. And thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Everyone, take care. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.